Happy New Year, everybody. This is the very first Time About the Movies episode for 2025. And before I start here, I know that there wasn't like a little message about the year before or anything, like a little video. I did make a little video from that basically I took from last year and just replaced the Happy New Year 2024 at the end with 2025. Because honestly, really, the year was just such a downer for me, and I didn't want to. I don't want to make anybody feel less uplifting than most of the people are right now. But that's why I didn't really want to do it. But the year was just a rocky year for me, and it's not that I'm not worried about the year being bad or anything. It's just like when you get weighed down like I did in 2024 with all the stuff that happened to me, like my personal life and all that. Like I just really couldn't put the things together right now, and as you can tell, I'm still kind of feeling a little sick because I got a little cold going on here, but I am feeling a lot better, so that's why I didn't do it. I'm not trying to weigh anybody down, because I know right now everybody's celebrating the new year, and I'm celebrating it too. It's just like, I'm just hoping this year's better than last year, and as I say that, it's always going to get worse, but enough with that. The new year is here, so let's get back to, let's flash back in time about now 18 years ago, to the year 2007. I almost said 2025 again, but the summer of 2027 to be, the summer of 2007. The summer of 2007. Okay. Back to the summer of 2007. I've been kind of hyping this up because this was is what I like to call one of the most overhyped summers of all time, because this was a summer that had a ton of blockbusters coming out that everybody was just so excited for. Everyone was thinking that this was going to be the big year with all these big new blockbusters. I mean, a new Shrek movie, a new Pirates of the Caribbean movie, a new Rush Hour movie, a new Ocean's 13 movie. We've got a Simpsons movie coming out in theaters, a new Bourne film, Transformers is coming to the big screen thanks to Michael Bay. Just all these projects that everyone was hyping up, making it feel like that this was going to be the biggest summer in the history of everything. And it was a packed summer overall, and a lot of the movies were good for summer blockbusters' sake. In terms of movies that are great overall, they're very few and far between. There's a couple of good ones that we'll eventually get to in the weeks and months to come here, but I think the first movie kind of perfectly sums up the example of how overhyped this summer was. Imagine sitting in a movie theater in the summer of 2006. You're just about to sit down to watch Superman Returns, and you have no idea that a Spider-Man 3 trailer is about to drop on you. And then you get a trailer that's as cool looking as this. I mean, that's really all you need to get us really excited, because, the last movie was such a big success. It was even bigger than the first movie. It was a better movie than the first film. And, everybody was really looking forward to seeing what this new Spider-Man movie was going to be like. And everyone got really excited for it. We couldn't wait to see what this was going to be like. And most people came out of it liking it, but they definitely had a lot of flaws to it. And eventually, as the time went on, we slowly but surely started to realize that, it wasn't that great to begin with. But does that make it a bad movie per se? Let's take a look at the plot here. Set after the events of Spider-Man 2, you have Peter Parker, once again played by Tobey Maguire, who's become a cultural phenomenon as Spider-Man, while Mary Jane Watson, played by Kirsten Dunst, continues her Broadway career. Harry Osborn, played by James Franco, still seeks revenge for his father's death, and an escaped conflict, Flip Marko, played by Thomas Hayden Church, falls into a particle accelerator and is transformed into a shape-shifting sand manipulator. An extraterrestrial symbiote crashes to Earth and bonds with Peter, influencing his behavior for the worse. When Peter abandons the symbiote, it finds refuge in Eddie Brock, played by Topher Grace, a rival photographer, causing Peter to face his greatest challenge. And I think that paragraph kind of sums up everything that's wrong with this movie and kind of everything about the summer in general. A lot of these movies had way too much going on in all of these movies. Like, too many plot developments, too many things that just seemed needlessly poured in there. They weren't simplistic. They weren't simple storylines here. You know, this is a film that you can is like, we didn't find this out until later on, but you can tell this was a film that was heavily influenced, not by Sam Raimi, because heaven forbid, the director of the previous two movies, who made two critical and commercial successful films, you know, by the third film, he should have more free range to do whatever he wants to, but not with Sam Raimi and Sony. No, and especially not with Avi Arad, who forced him to put Venom in this movie, a character that he did not like at all. Like, he has gone on to say that he does not like Venom whatsoever, and they forced him to put him in there because he wanted to do a movie with what's his name? The villain from Homecoming, Hawkman, I think it is. I should know this. The Vulture. See, I need to do my research before I go on the air with this, but he wanted to do this with the Vulture and Sandman, but they forced him to put Venom in there, and of course, he did it. He accomplished what he wanted to do, and he was hoping that with the next movie, Spider-Man 4, he'd get to do whatever he wants to again, and then Avi Arad just kept pushing him again until he said, fuck this shit, I'm out, and they had to restart the series all over again. And for about the first half of Spider-Man 3, I think it's just as good as the first two movies are. There's a lot of action. You get more invested in the characters. The visuals are very impressive. I mean, the scene where, you know, you have Thomas Hayden Church's character finding out he's becoming the Sandman, just one of these really incredible shots that, you know, it's very much, it could very much be its own short film and would have been one of the best short films ever made. It is that great. It's the highlight of the movie, no question about it. And even the first bits of Peter with the black suit, when he realizes what he has become, are actually really good. And it is very, very interesting to see him go into this deep, darker level. But then the second half, when the suit just makes Peter act like a goddamn idiot, is where the movie just completely throws everything out the door, and it's just like, to quote Airplane, the shit literally hits the fan. Insert the scene from Airplane where the shit literally hits the fan, which I probably won't do, but you get the idea. Well, it starts with throwing in Bryce Dallas Howard's Gwen Stacy as a third wheel in Peter's love triangle, which I thought was absolutely pointless to throw her in there, like, because she brings absolutely nothing to the table, and she's just there to be the third wheel of the storyline here. Like, I know she's one of the main characters in the comic books. I've seen her in other stuff where she does play a bigger role in it, but you can't just, but the way they just throw her in there, it's not there to be because she's a big character and all. No, they just want to throw her in there because she's there to just create a pointless love triangle for an already complicated story. And it continues when you throw Venom in there. And like I said, for no point whatsoever, but for fan service. And, you know, you gotta stop throwing. This was around the time when I was saying that you need to stop throwing two villains into one movie. Like, I get it. The Dark Knight worked because you had two villains, because the Joker was supposed to be the main villain, and Two-Face is more of a supporting villain, and that made the movie work out that way. Here, Marvel feels the need to force both of these villains in here as the main threat, and it doesn't have a plan whatsoever for both of them to work together. And like I said before, Sam Raimi's not a fan of Venom, and he hates that period of Spider-Man in general, but he was forced to throw him in there because of Avi Arad, and, you know, there's more about the production process of this that I'll get to in just a little bit here. The worst is when Peter just starts acting like a goddamn idiot out in public, and when he has the symbiote, because all it does is make him dance like a dumbass in the middle of the streets of New York. And don't even get me started on the god-awful club dancing scene. And at the end of it, where the film has, for no reason whatsoever, Peter hits Mary Jane just because, you know, as an old friend once called it, the sin of Moses. Because he never makes up for it, and it's never brought up again in the movie. So it's completely and 100% pointless. Pointless to the entire thing whatsoever. At that point, that's when you knew Sam Raimi hated his job so much. It's widely known that Raimi hated that he had done 2 movies with Marvel that were big hits, and yet even with the 3rd film, the studio, and more importantly Avi Arad, wouldn't let him make the movie he wanted to make. As I said before, he wanted to make a movie where the Sandman and Vulture break out of prison and cause havoc, but Avi Arad forced him to prevent him because that's what the fans want. And going back to what Carlisle said on a couple of cold ones on Spill.com back in the day, C. Robert Cargill, who you know now is a famous screenwriter, he pointed out an old episode that this is the same Avi Arad that said that the 2003 Hulk was the best movie Marvel ever produced, and that Bratz, which he would produce later on in the year, was the X-Men for teenage girls. I think that pretty much sums up everything that's wrong with Avi Arad. Here's my thoughts with what happened. By this 3rd film, Sam Raimi should have the right to make the movie he wants to make. He delivered 2 mega hits to the studio that were both great movies, so by that point, just give him a blank check and let him do whatever he wanted to do. They should have given Raimi the same treatment Warner Brothers gave Christopher Nolan when he did the Batman sequels. They should have let him do whatever he wanted to do, but no. They pushed him into doing whatever they wanted, and thus the second half of the film stumbles because that's where you can tell Raimi gave up caring and was only sticking around just for the paycheck. And you'd think they'd be done with the fucking over Raimi over that one, but no. Avi Arad said, forced him to make the changes Arad wanted again, and that's the point where Raimi finally said, fuck it, I quit. And honestly, you can't really blame him for not sticking around, because there's no excuse for him to do this to him. When 3 films were all successful movies, and then you, on this 4th film, you're still going to screw him over for reasons that are beyond me. And thus we have the Amazing Spider-Man movies, which, you know, I'll say this. That movie clearly was made by somebody who didn't have the love of Spider-Man like Raimi did, and was just made as a quick cash cow. Like, Andrew Garfield aside, Andrew Garfield was good. The movie was garbage. I'm sorry, I don't like the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I don't like those movies in general, but that's for another day and time. But back to Spider-Man 3. Overall, the first half really is the best part of the movie. It's not until you reach the second half where you see all the problems. The pointless villain, the lame intro to the pointless villain, the pointless love triangle, a lazy final climax, way too much goddamn CG, just an unpleasant conclusion to what was starting off as a great movie. The ending of the movie just makes no sense whatsoever. Like, it just ends. Like, it's just Peter going into the nightclub, and they're reconciling, and they're hugging, and that's it. Like, did you really think that was how the movie this series was going to end when you first watched the first one back in 2002? I sure as shit didn't, but this is the perfect example of a polarizing movie with a first half that's so damn good and a second half that's so damn bad. Spider-Man 3 just joins the ranks of Blade Trinity, X-Men 3 as bad Marvel threequels that bring in way too many pointless characters, a lame story, too many villains, and just a lousy, lousy ending. Spider-Man 3 starts off great, but ends up being really, really bad by the end of it. And it would take nearly 10 years before they finally got it right again. And we'll eventually get into that when we get to the MCU Spider-Man movies, as well as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. But we're still way too far away from that. But that's Spider-Man 3 for you. So, obviously, that was the big hit of the weekend, and also the big hit of the summer and the year in general, because that was the #1 movie of the year. So, who's going to combat with that? Well, at least one film went wide, hoping that it would counter-program, and needless to say, it didn't work so well. And when you see it, you can kind of see why. Curtis Hanson's latest film, Drew Barrymore and Eric Bana starring in, Lucky You.
Where everyone takes chances.
You don't work, you just gamble.
Who said it's not work?
This is fun. Win-win.
They'll have to risk it all.
Gotta make this work.
Don't chase who you can't catch. To win it all, sometimes you gotta play your gun.
If anyone could turn nothing into something, it's you. You know what I think? I think everybody's just trying not to be lonely.
Lucky You, rated PG-13, starts May 4th.
Or as you might look at this, the origin story for many YouTubers out there who gamble, like I'm talking about your Vegas Mats, your Mr. Handpay, your Brian Christopher Slots, your SD Guy 1234. I know a lot of these guys, so I watch them all the time, and but that's for another day. But in this movie, you have Eric Bana starring as Huck Cheever, which that's just a stupid name. He plays a poker player, brilliant but also prone to let emotion take over. It's the week of the Poker World Series, and Huck must come up with $10,000 for the entry fee, where he wins, loses, borrows, and loses, and even steals part of from Billy Offer, an earnest young woman, played by Drew Barrymore, who is new in town, and who catches Huck's eye. By the time the tournament starts, Huck owes everyone. Complicating things is the arrival of Huck's father, played by Robert Duvall, who Huck detested for leaving, having left his mother, a champion player in town, to win. Can Huck learn to play poker the way he lives and to live the way he plays poker, or is his only flush the sound of his life going down the toilet? Well, I don't think it's his luck going down the toilet, but it's Curtis Hansen's luck going down the toilet, because good lord, what a bad movie this really is, and you expect a lot more from Curtis Hanson in general. He's made a lot of great movies, especially in the last 10 years. We've talked about a lot of his great movies on here, but this movie just felt like... This movie didn't feel like a film that deserved to have his name on this. It's one of those movies that is very complicated because there's all these characters here, and you have no idea what's the overall objective of the storyline here. Is this supposed to be an uplifting father-son story? Is it supposed to be a love story between Eric Bana and Drew Barrymore? It's trying to combine both of those along with the high-stakes world of poker, and it just doesn't work at all. And I'm seeing here why this probably failed, because this sat on the show for 2 years at Warner Brothers and went through numerous release date changes as well as half a dozen different cuts of the film because of negative test screenings. If you have to do 6 of these test screenings to realize that this film isn't working, maybe you should just go ahead and just dump the film in general. Like, this is the type of film that should have been a tax write-off, and not the stuff that Warner Brothers currently is making tax write-offs off of. Look, Eric Bana and Drew Barrymore have more than proven how great of actors they are. Robert Duvall has proven how great of an actor he is. Deborah Messing in this movie has proven how great she can be as an actress. But everybody in this movie is just so wasted in this film. There's nothing of value whatsoever. The story is just all over the place. It's not engaging. It's not interesting whatsoever. It's a terrible movie. It's a bad film. A waste of good talent all across the board. I hated it. I didn't like it at all, and I think most people can agree with me that this is not a very good film. So with that said, let's get back to some good movies. How about we get to some really good movies, the best films of the week, honestly. Let's start with the first one we have here, and that is Julie Christie starring in Away From Her.
People do get lonely, especially when they're deprived of seeing someone they care about.
It's just life.
I'm not gonna lie, I completely forgot that Sarah Polley directed this movie. And, of course, Sarah Polley is the person who directed Woman Talking, which was a pretty good movie overall. And she was gonna do the Bambi remake, and, of course, they're no longer doing that anymore, which is good because they shouldn't touch that movie. But this is Away From Her, and I'm only bringing this up for one particular reason. I'll get to that in just a second, but in the film, you center on a couple whose marriage is tested when the wife begins to develop Alzheimer's and moves into a nursing home, where she loses virtually all of her memory of her husband and begins to develop a close relationship with another nursing home resident. The movie features Julie Christie, as well as Olivia Dukakis and Wendy Crewson from the Santa Claus movies, and of course, Julie Christie actually got an Academy Award nomination for this performance in this film, and it's really not hard to see why, because she really is really good in the film. She is she's very good in the film. They do a very good job of creating this wonderful story here that doesn't sugarcoat anything. Like, you should see like the troubles that Alzheimer's really does to people, and just like how your family members can be taken away because they lose their memory of you. And yeah, it's just it's a sad film in general, but it's a really uplifting film too at the same time, and it just works very well because you do buy into the chemistry between Christie and Gordon Pinsett. You do buy into the chemistry of all the actors in here. Everybody in here plays their part very well, and it just works on a number of different levels. It's a very engaging film, a very entertaining film, one I really recommend. If you like Women Talking, you'll definitely want to see this one to see where Sarah Polley got her directing shots from, because this is a film that she did beforehand, and it's a really good movie. It's a really good film. I highly recommend it, Away From Her. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last film we have here, probably the most notable film that came out this weekend besides, obviously, Spider-Man 3, and that is Kerry Russell in Waitress.
Hello, Jenna.
Hello. Here, I brought you some peachy keen tarts.
So, what seems to be the problem?
I seem to be pregnant.
Congratulations.
Thanks, but I'm not so happy about it like everybody else might be. I'm having the baby, and that's that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The biggest mystery about Jenna Hunterson is how a girl this great
You should open your own pie shop. Yeah, somewhere where they could really use a little pie shop, like Europe or New Jersey.
ended up with a life like this.
Hey.
I don't care if she is a pie genius. I wouldn't trade places with her. No.
Oh, where's that money you made today?
Right here in my pocket.
Well, now hand it over.
I'm inventing a new pie in my head. I hate my husband pie.
I don't think we can write that on the menu board, huh?
How you doing today, Joe?
Same as yesterday, Jenna. How are you?
Same train wreck.
How's the bad husband?
Excuse me, I feel like I'm gonna be sick.
So Waitress tells the story of Kerry Russell as a young woman trapped in a small town in an abusive marriage who faces an unwanted pregnancy while working as a waitress. And of course, she has a relationship with Nathan Fillion in the movie, and there's a cast that also includes, as you see, Cheryl Hines, the late Adrian Shelley, who also directed the film, Jeremy Sisto as her abusive husband, and Andy Griffith, which you can never go wrong with not having you can never go wrong with having Matlock in your movie. I'm just saying, but this of course went on to become a very successful musical, and you can see why it works on so many levels. It's a very good film that features a lot of great talent in here. It's a movie that is very uplifting, very vibrant and colorful, and it just has a great stacked cast that really works this material very well here. And hard to believe that this was also the same year Juno came out. So Fox Searchlight had two movies centering around an unwanted pregnancy that actually turned out to be really damn good movies. I mean, Juno I think is much better, but I like this one a lot. I really think this is a very entertaining film. And it's a shame that the director passed away not too long after this, because she really would have gone on to become a really good director if she kept making movies like this. I mean, this is a really good film, featuring a lot of good talent, a really good storyline. It's a very good mix of comedy and drama. It's such a great film, lots of great talent. I mean, what more can you say, man? This is a great film. I can't recommend it enough. Seek this one out, Waitress.
2003, 28 days later, Regal found the apocalyptic thriller. Now, what are you afraid of?
What if it comes back?
Days turn to weeks, and the threat is everywhere.
If it comes back, we kill it.
It's probably nothing.
28 weeks later.
So 28 weeks later, set after the events of the first film, depicting the events of NATO military forces to salvage a safe zone in London, and the consequence of two young siblings breaking protocol to find a photograph of their mother, and the resulting reintroduction of the rage virus into the safe zone. On paper, this seems like a sequel that feels rather pointless. I mean, 28 Days Later kind of wrapped its story up very well, and didn't really feel the need to continue the storyline in another movie, unless you had Danny Boyle behind it, which we don't get it here, but we will get it eventually, as it will come out later this summer, with 28 years later. But as far as this movie goes, I'll be honest. I was expecting it to be a whole lot worse, but I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. It's definitely not the first movie, but I do like that they have some elements that I still thought was really cool. I did like the way they kind of reintroduced the rage virus back into this whole thing, and how everybody kind of handles the situation when they find out that the virus is back, and like it doesn't feel like a here we go again type of storyline here. I like the cast that they have in here. You got Robert Carlyle, Rose Byrne, Jeremy Renner, Idris Elba, Imogen Poots, Harold Perrinar from Lost, Catherine McCormick. A lot of really good talent in this movie in general, and yeah, it does kind of fall into some predictable territory here and there, but at the same time, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be like another generic horror sequel that they just made for the quick buck, which they probably did make this for the quick buck, but you could tell that the people that were involved in this were at least trying to do a story that was very much in line with the first film, but not be a repeat of the first film. There are new elements they add to it that I thought worked very well. Not everything about it worked overall, but I'll give it credit that it was much better than I ever thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be another been there, done that type of sequel, but instead it actually allows for a movie that is very entertaining, and doesn't quite have the same spark as the first movie does, but it is a lot better than I would have given it credit for if I had not seen it beforehand. So I thought it was pretty good, 28 weeks later. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, Lindsay Lohan, Jane Fonda, and Felicity Huffman starring in Georgia Rule.
Evil. Makeup helps.
In this family, you live here, you work. Attitude
No wonder Mom hates you.
doesn't skip a generation.
No fighting! She was raised in California.
Georgia Rule, rated R, tomorrow.
one of Lindsay Lohan's 2 really bad movies in 2007, and yet this isn't the one that killed her career. No. We'll get to the second one a little bit later on in the summertime, but in this movie, she stars as Rachel, who comes to stay with her grandmother Georgia for the summer, leaving some obvious problems behind at home. Her alcoholic mother, played by Felicity Huffman, doesn't even stay the night before, rushing out back to California to be with her husband. Rachel shakes up the town, a beautiful girl in the boring Mormon country. Then she reveals her deepest secrets to one of her new friends, and her mother comes rushing back to find out if it's true. In the midst of a crisis, the 3 women become closer than ever and start to understand each other more. That's good to know, because certainly the story has no idea what it was to understand, because, man, this movie is really, really bad. It's not because of the actors. The actors overall are fine. They're doing what they need to do here, even though this film was heavily criticized by the head of Morgan Creek Productions, who literally threatened to sue Lindsay Lohan because she was causing such a problem behind the scenes. This was around the time when, you know, she was out partying a lot and getting drunk all the time and being a nuisance on sets, and Robinson literally called her a spoiled child. Like, that's what it really felt like, and he just really felt like, you know, this promise that Lindsay Lohan had a couple years ago was just slowly starting to fade away. And yeah, as much as this movie is trying its best to hold it together on the performances overall are the best thing about the movie. But everything else, the story really is a mess. It's a sloppy storyline. It really doesn't have a good balance of comedy and drama. There's no life lesson to be learned here that really makes a whole lot of sense. And it just doesn't work as a whole. It's a film that is really, really lazily put together. I mean, even this poster that I'm looking at right now looks incredibly fake. I mean, just look at this. Look at this. I mean, just look at this. Look at the faces. Look at how they don't match the bodies whatsoever. Like, that's not a good sign if you're trying to sell this movie and you can't even make the faces look like they're actually on the people's bodies. These look like they were pictures that were literally taken somewhere else, and they just plastered it onto the poster and sold it off as an official poster. That does not look like a real poster whatsoever, but lo and behold, it actually is.
I'm often asked what makes a hero. Courage, selflessness, sacrifice.
Somebody said a hero?
Meet the Weekend Warriors.
If there was ever a worse excuse for a soldier, I'd like to meet him.
Hey there, Sarge. Snap into a Slim Jim.
We just got our orders. Sarge, you're supposed to home tomorrow.
Yeah, and on Mondays I cut the grass.
Wrong, sunshine. We're going to paradise, the land of sand and sun.
Hey, do you want a beach?
Fallujah, Iraq.
I'm on die tomorrow. I want to get a good night's sleep.
Good night. We're overloaded. Get ready to dump the gear.
This is it. Iraq.
Oh, man. We're in Iraq.
What in the name of Siegfried and Roy are you fellas doing? Don't tell.
Iraqi insurgents.
Now the battle is on.
Hold your fire. Right, I'm going to fire. It's Lamo. Let's get out of here.
There's just one little problem.
What's the fun?
You're not in Iraq, Ringo. Oh, my God.
We invaded Mexico.
That is literally the plot of the movie. They think they're going to Iraq, but no, they accidentally land in Mexico and think it's Iraq. Are you laughing yet? I mean, I can't believe there's a movie that actually makes In the Army Now look like a much better war comedy than by comparison. When 3 small-town National Guardsmen bound for Iraq are unknowingly dropped into Mexico, their confusion leads to liberate a small village from a band of corrupt federales. That's literally the plot of the movie, and yeah, this movie is pretty lame. And I say pretty lame, but no, it's really lame. This movie sucks, man. I mean, it's no real shocker why it sucks in general, because, yeah, the plot makes no sense whatsoever. The 3 actors in here have no chemistry whatsoever. 2 of them work for the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, and you would think they would have some chemistry here. But no, they don't. Everybody in here is half-assed it. They're only making this because Larry the Cable Guy's last movie was a big success. They have no intention on making a good movie. They just know that idiot rednecks will go out to see this movie, and lo and behold, they did. This film did not, I mean, this film wasn't a big hit in general, but the budget on this couldn't have been that big enough to keep making these movies, because they made more of these movies with Larry the Cable Guy in them, and, yeah, they get even stupider from here, which is hard to believe, but, yeah, sad to say, but true, but, it's not even a funny comedy, man. It's not even a movie that's try to be like a satire or something like The Three Amigos, or a mix of it's trying to be like a mix of that plus The Magnificent Seven plus Full Metal Jacket, except all those were much better movies by comparison, and it's not even, I don't even need to explain why those were much better movies. And the film just sucks. Do I really need to go on and say anything more about it? It's a terrible movie. Nothing is funny about it whatsoever. There's nothing of value to it. It's Delta Force. What more do you have to expect from this? Now let's get to our last film here, which is a comedy you do expect a lot more of, considering the talent on board here. But, yeah, prepare to be extremely disappointed. This is The X.
Mom, answer the phone and don't come down here. I'm having a session. Yeah, the exercises I'm studying are a little new agey, so I hope you guys will just trust me and know with it. What do you think?
In the world of advertising, Tom Riley was on the fast track.
Our new assistant associate creative, Tom Riley. It's sunburst. The yes ball gets thrown around the office. Go on!
Until the day.
Come on, buddy. You're gonna jump for those. I haven't been able to, Tom, since I was 5. This is the guy you're gonna be working with. He's the man.
Chip Sanders rolled into town.
You married Sophia Kowalski. Oh, I'm lucky man. Thanks. You earn her love every single day. What's this Chip guy like?
We were in cheerleading together.
Let me tell you what you are. L-O-S-E-R.
See, with Delta Force, you know what you're going into. Either you know what you're going into, or you're just really not that stupid to think that there's going to be some value to it. This one you expect a whole lot more from. In this movie, you have Sophia, played by Amanda Peet, who's an attorney, and Tom, played by Zach Braff, a cook, who has a hard time holding a job. When their first child is born, they agree that she'll be a full-time mother, and he'll get a promotion. When he gets fired, he takes a job in Ohio working at an ad agency where her father, played by Charles Grodin, is assistant director. Tom's decided to report to Chip, played by Jason Bateman, a competitive, hard-driving guy who's in a wheelchair and who's Sophia's ex-boyfriend from high school. Chip still carries a torch for her, but Sophie convenes to make Tom's work life miserable. As Tom's frustration mounts, it may be that Sophia will take Chip's side. Is Tom doomed to fail yet again? Are you really that stupid that you're going to do this plot here and not expect us to laugh one bit? Everything you expect in this movie is in this film, and for a movie that has Charles Grodin in his first film since frickin' Clifford of all things, and It Runs in the Family in 1994. I expect a whole lot more than this, and just from everybody involved in here, because not only do you have Zach Braff, Amanda Peet, Charles Grodin, Jason Bateman, you also have Mia Farrow, Donald Logue, who was done on Grounded for Life, Amy Poehler, Amy Adams, Fred Armisen. Just that cast list right there should be in a much better movie than this pile of garbage. And this is a pile of garbage movie, and not shocking, this is directed by the same guy that did Our Idiot Brother, which is another movie that wastes a lot of really good talent in there, and is a movie that is not funny whatsoever and is completely lame. But at least that one was trying. This one just falls right into territory that we've seen done to death all over again. And the whole movie is just leading up to absolutely nothing. They go back to square one right from the get-go, and it's just like, why were we even here to begin with? You just wasted an hour and a half of our time on something that makes no sense whatsoever, leads to absolutely nothing whatsoever. So what's the point? Why am I sitting in a movie theater watching this garbage if this is all you're going to amount to? Honestly, like, what does this movie have to offer anybody? Nothing. And yet again, this is another movie that Zach Braff, he started his film career off so strong with Garden State, and then he does The Last Kiss, and then this movie, and you can see why his film career kind of crashed and burned after this. And it's just like, I want this guy to star in more funny movies, man. I think Zach Braff is very funny. I mean, I've talked about it before. I like this guy a lot as an actor, but every time I see him in a movie like this, it just feels like he's the wrong person for the role. He's being there to just play a one-note character that's nothing of value to him whatsoever, and it just doesn't work out in any of the movies he's done since Garden State. It's a terrible film, a big steaming pile of garbage. It's an even bigger disappointment than Delta Force just because of who's involved in here. This film deserves a much better story for everybody in here to be in this sort of predicament. But this is pure garbage. This is absolute 100% garbage. One of the worst comedies I've ever seen. Avoid it like the plague. It's a terrible film. I absolutely hate this movie, The X.
Check
30 and 12 together again. It's a whole new mission. It's top secret. Hush it, hush. Get ready. At least you got us to help you out. I'm doomed. Get set. Get Shrek'd. Great. Let's get started. Shrek? Ah! You know, you really need to get yourself a pair of jams. It's a blast. It's a gas. It's DreamWorks Shrek the Third. It's spicy. Rated PG. This Friday.
And right away, I think you could see some of the problems with this movie in particular from that trailer alone. But in the film, Prince Charming is back, and he's plotting to overthrow Shrek and Fiona, who have inherited the throne following King Harold's death. Shrek has no interest in ruling the kingdom and attempts to convince Fiona's underachieving 16-year-old cousin Artie to reign instead. Artie being played by Justin Timberlake, and this is also a cast that includes a ton of actors in here, not just the main group of Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, Antonio Banderas, you know, characters from the last movie, Julie Andrews, John Cleese, Rupert Everett. You have Eric Idle in here, the aforementioned Justin Timberlake, Larry King is back in this one, Amy Poehler, Maya Rudolph, Sherry O'Terry, Amy Sedaris, Ian McShane, Regis Philbin, John Krasinski, Seth Rogen. A lot of people in this movie, and that's part of the problem with the movie. Kind of like with Spider-Man 3, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this movie. They take a simple concept, like the previous Shrek movies, and just say, let's add all these different layers to it, and let's not even try to create a story whatsoever. Let's rehash a villain from the last movie, because, you know, why bother creating a new villain for a film, because we know this is going to be an instant cashback for us. And that's probably the thinking that DreamWorks had in particular when they made this movie, because, man, this movie does not feel like the first two movies whatsoever. I mean, this film is awe-inspiring on how just, not even bad, but just how bland and mediocre it is. And it is a bland, mediocre movie. It's a film that has so much thrown at you, from story to characters that seem rather pointless. Just everything about the movie just feels like they did not care whatsoever, and it really did feel like that they just threw everything at the wall and just said, anything sticking? No, we'll just keep doing it until we have somewhat of a script here. Like, you can't convince me that this was the original intention for Shrek 3. There was no way that this whole idea that this movie had was the whole purpose of making a third Shrek movie. This is a film that was clearly made just for the money, and of course this was a massive hit. It was the 4th highest grossing film of the year, and yeah, they made the money, but they damaged the reputation of the Shrek movies in general. Let's put it simply this way: when Shrek the Halls, the half-hour special on ABC that came out the following holiday, that following Christmas, is the far superior Shrek project that came out in 2007. Clearly, there's a problem here, and yeah, just everything is thrown here. It'd be fine if the jokes and the story were funny, if the story had a purpose to it, but the jokes in here just aren't funny. There's a long, dragged-out scene of Harold dying, like as the frog, and you think he's dead for good, and then he comes back alive again. And it's a joke that just keeps going and going and going. It never goes anywhere, and it just feels so pointless. It feels so pointless. There's a scene where there's a whole subplot where Donkey and Puss in Boots switch bodies, and now it's Puss in Boots and Donkey's body, and so on and so forth. There's a whole subplot about Fiona and the princesses working together, and one of them's working for Prince Charming. And like I said before, Prince Charming is the villain once again, because he was just a supporting villain in the last movie to the Fairy Godmother, and instead of creating a new villain, they just rehashed the old villain, and it's just, everything about this movie just feels so poorly put together, so badly put together, and it just, I mean, I didn't notice it at first, because I came out of it just like, it's fine for what it is, but the more and more I watch it, the more I realize that, yeah, this just didn't work overall, and I'm glad to see that the series did get a proper conclusion, or at least what was supposed to be a proper conclusion, because now we're getting a 5th one now, but with the next movie, Shrek Forever After. Even though that one's not great either, it certainly is miles above this movie. This movie just felt like the definition of, let's just make a quick sequel, we'll get the money, and then we'll take it on out of here, and that's literally what this film feels like. It just, no effort went into this movie whatsoever in terms of making a good sequel. They just wanted to make something for the quick buck. That's it. Plain and simple. And again, there are some ideas in here that I think are pretty cool. It'd be interesting. There's a fun little subplot about, Shrek becoming a father because Fiona gets pregnant, and, he has these nightmares about what he'd be like as a father. And you see by the end of it, like, it's a little heartfelt scene. It's actually a nice scene when he actually has the kids. And that is a major focal point of the next movie in particular, and I think that's something that really, that's something that really could have been touched on in this movie, but no, they throw all these subplots in here that don't make any sense whatsoever, serve no purpose whatsoever, and like I said, I'm glad the fourth film came out because I think that's a better conclusion to the storyline. Not as good as the first two movies, but certainly a lot better than this. This just feels like a regurgitated sequel that was clearly made for the money, and that was it. So yeah, plain and simple, Shrek the Third is pretty bad. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last one we have here, and that is Once.
It's the film that's getting once-in-a-lifetime reviews. 4 stars. Really, truly, deeply. One of the year's best. Grade A. The movie swoons. And you will too. 2 thumbs way up. A great secret that needs to be shared with the world. A gift of a movie that is absolutely worth seeing more than once. Once, rated R. Now playing in select theaters.
Easily the biggest sleeper hit of the year because this is a little film that came out of nowhere and really was one of the more uplifting movies you'll see from 2007. You have an unnamed guy who's a Dublin guitarist, singer, and songwriter who makes a living by fixing vacuum cleaners in his dad's Hoover repair shop by day and singing and playing for money on the Dublin streets by night. An unnamed girl is a Czech who plays piano when she gets a chance and does odd jobs by day and takes care of her mom and her daughter by night. A guy meets girl, and they get to know each other as the girl helps the guy put together a demo disc that he could take to London in hopes of landing a music contract. And during that several same-day period, the guy and the girl work through their past loves and reveal their budding love for one another through their songs. So it's kind of like a musical version of something like the Before Sunrise trilogy, but instead of Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, you have these 2 actors. What's their names here? Glenn Hansard as Guy and Maketa Uglova, I think I'm pronouncing that right, as Girl. And you really just buy their chemistry altogether. It's a very dialogue-filled movie, and it just works so well because these 2 have excellent chemistry together. You do like that they have these the chemistry and the relationships and dialogue they have in here. Plus, the song's really good, too. I mean, the songs in the film are absolutely incredible. Like I said before, this is a film that has a song that is so well done. It won the Oscar for Best Original Song. It actually made the actress in here the youngest person ever to win an Oscar for a non-acting category. I'll never forget the night the Oscars happened because they were given the speech, and then the girl, Maketa Iglova, she was about to go on, and then they just cut her off, and then when they went to the commercial break, Jon Stewart was just like, I know we got to move along here, but we got to give this woman a chance to say what she needs to say. And they brought her back out. And it's just like, that's a great moment right there because she deserves it, man. I mean, this is a really good movie with a lot of great music overall. It was so successful, it did become its own stage musical later on down the road. It's a really good movie, man. This director, John Carney, made another really good musical drama, Begin Again, with Keira Knightley and Mark Ruffalo, which is about as good as this movie is. Maybe not as good as this one is, because how much it came out of nowhere. That one you have, Begin Again, you have Mark Ruffalo and Keira Knightley among the cast in there, but this film is just absolutely incredible. It's a sweet little story with a lot of great music overall, with these 2 great characters you want to get behind and root for. Absolutely a fantastic film. One I seriously recommend checking out. Once, definitely see it. You're going to want to see it more than once.
What would you do? What would any of you be willing to do? Would you brave the weird and haunted shores at world's end to fetch back Witty Jack?
Did no one come to save me just because they missed me?
There was a time when a pirate was free to make his own way in the world. But our time is coming to an end.
Why should I sail with any of you? 4 of you have tried to kill me in the past. One of you succeeded.
Our enemies have united and vowed to destroy us.
You can fight, and all of you will die.
The pirate lords from the 4 corners of the earth,
Welcome to Singapore.
must stand together. There's not been a gathering like this in our lifetime.
And I owe them all money.
It would never have worked out between us.
Keep telling yourself that, darling.
They know they face extinction. All that remains is where they make their final stand.
Will you marry me?
I don't think now's the best time!
You're mad.
If I wasn't, this would probably never work.
So in this third installment of the Pirates of the Caribbean series, you have Will Turner, Elizabeth Swann, Hector Barbosa, and the crew of the Black Pearl rescuing Captain Jack Sparrow from Davy Jones's locker, and they're preparing to fight the East India Trading Company led by Cutler Beckett, who controls Davy Jones and plans to extinguish piracy forever. And much like Dead Man's Chest, a lot of the problems with the movie is that it's all over the place. For one thing, right from the get-go, it starts with one of the most downer things ever. You've got the Walt Disney Pictures logo, you know, one of the happiest things you could see in a movie. And then guess what follows after that? A hanging. No. Not just one hanging. No. No, we gotta prove that we're going extremely dark here at Disney, for Disney. 7 people being hanged to death. All just after we had the opening logo. And it's all downhill from there. I mean, yeah, the action sequences can still look pretty impressive, and the cinematography still is really spectacular. I love that shot of Jack and Davy Jones just duking it out above the ship while the camera circles around them. That's one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. The biggest problem playing at World's End is kind of like with Spider-Man 3 Trek the Third. Too much stuff is going on, and it's mostly because of a clunky script. And once again, the runtime here is really a problem. This is a movie that's over 2.5 hours long, and it doesn't add anything new or has anything exciting that makes us convinced that this should have been a trilogy all along. Clearly this was meant to do the same thing that Back to the Future did back in the 90s, and The Matrix did just a few years before this. But here's the thing. Back to the Future was always meant to be a one-film storyline, but when that film became the big success that it was, and when they made the back-to-back sequels, they at least found new and creative ways to come up with a satisfying story, and span it out over 3 films, doing different genres. Like, the second movie was obviously more focused on the future, the third film basically is a western, but here, it's like they don't know where they want to take the franchise at all. I mean, the first movie was such a surprise hit that nobody really saw coming, and I guess they thought there was just going to be one movie in general, but when it went on to become the massive hit that it was, nobody really knew where to I don't think anybody really knew where to take this franchise going forward, and it's a film that's supposed to be setting itself up as the end of the storyline, but doesn't set up the end of the franchise itself. It really doesn't have an indication of which direction it really wants to go into. Again, the action can still look very impressive at times, but unlike Dead Man's Chest, where there's at least an effort to keep some of the charm and wit from the first film, there's barely none of that. They go dark in this way too much, and you can be dark if you want to, but you gotta have some blending in like you did in the first movie, and not just be bleak and dark about it like this film is. Like, it's a really, really lackluster film, and it just ends the series. It was supposedly the end of the series it ends it on a sour note. And you gotta think that if you're gonna continue the story, you gotta take it to another direction. And, the next film, they take out the love interests in the movie and just make it all about the man we always associate with this, Captain Jack Sparrow. Does it work out in the film's favor? Well, so. We'll delve into that once we get to On Stranger Tides in a couple of years' time. But for now, though, at World's End, some brief flashes here and there, but it's just another one of these movies that we come to expect from this point in the summertime, from this particular summer. Just too much is going on here, and it just it ruins the movie completely because way too much is going on, and what's there is just way too bleak and too bland to really count as anything entertaining. At least in my opinion, it didn't. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last one we have here, William Friedkin's Bug, starring Ashley Judd.
Somebody.
First, they send their drone.
Very beautiful.
Then, they find their queen.
You want me to stay here tonight?
You hear that?
What happens next
Oh my God.
is a living nightmare. On May 25th, evil lives.
We have to kill her.
Inside us all.
I know who I am!
From the Academy Award-winning director of The Exorcist, Bug, rated R, in theaters May 25th.
Yeah, so something I didn't know about this until I did the research for this. This is actually based off of a play from a character actor, Tracy Letts, who I've seen in a ton of stuff before. He was most recently in Saturday Night Live, in the Saturday Night movie, about Saturday Night Live, but turns out this was based off of a play that he wrote back in 1996, and I had no idea that it was even that part about it, but yeah, you learn something new when you do your research here. But in this film, you have Ashley Judd as a woman who's escaping her abusive ex-husband who was recently released from state prison, and she's a lonely waitress with a tragic past, so she moves into a sleazy, rundown motel, and she has a lesbian co-worker introduce her to this guy named Peter, a peculiar, paranoid drifter played by Harry Connick Jr., and they begin a tentative romance. However, things aren't always as they appear, as Agnes is about to experience a claustrophobic nightmare reality as the bugs begin to arrive. And for William Friedkin, this was kind of at the later half of his, this is the latter of his career, this is the twilight of his career, and kind of the last couple movies he would make, and he'd not been making the best movies for a long time, honestly. I can't remember, what was the last good William Friedkin movie I saw that he directed? Probably Blue Chips in '94, which was the one with Nick Nolte and Shaquille O'Neal. But, yeah, he hadn't made a whole lot of good movies since then, but this is probably one of his better films that he's made. A film that works mostly because of the way it uses the take on paranoia. Like, it really is a film that, they created a lot of good tension. They got a lot of really solid actors in here to make this work. You've got Lynn Collins also in here, as well as Michael Shannon, who, you've got a really solid cast in here overall, and the film really does keep keeps you on the edge of your seat. It wasn't really afraid to, build up this tension overall, and I think the ending is going to be very polarizing to a lot of people. I thought it worked for what they were trying to accomplish here, and it just works overall. I think it's a very entertaining film. I think it's a film that really does keep you invested throughout the course of the film. The actors are very good. The story is very interesting. It's a very good tension-filled movie, because this woman's got a lot of problems that she's got to deal with. She's got this guy that she just met that could be nuts. Her husband's out of prison. And, yeah, it's just so many different things going on here. And they just all work to the film's advantage in the end. I really like it a lot. I think it's a very underrated little film. Definitely check it out. If you want to see one of William Friedkin's best films that he did later in his career, Bug is probably the best one he's done, honestly. So, yeah, I highly recommend Bug.